The movie starts with M. Foster, Cleopatra Coleman, and James, Alexander Skarsgård, waking up while staying at an all-inclusive resort on the island nation of Litalka, which is currently celebrating a yearly festival. James is a failed novelist who hasn't released a book in more than 6 years, but he still enjoys a comfortable existence because to M's wealthy family and their successful publishing business. So that James might get some ideas for his upcoming project, they plan to spend their vacation at Litalka. James comes into commercial actress Gabby Bauer, Mia Goth, together with her architect spouse Albin, while visiting the resort, Jaleel Lespert. He is startled given that his previous book was a critical and commercial flop, but he is flattered to find that Gabby and Albin were both major admirers of it. The Bauers invite the Fosters to accompany them on a trip the following day after the two couples share dinner that evening at a neighborhood eatery. The Bauers are able to escape the resort despite the fact that it is closely guarded and that visitors are required to remain inside the gated community at all times thanks to their relationship with Mr. Thresh, one of the guards. Before arriving at a little beach to enjoy the sun and have a barbecue, the Fosters and Bauers drive through the Litalkan area. James and M show some of their interpersonal conflict at this point, as it is made clear that M's family is unhappy with their marriage and James' paucity of income. Later, as James excuses himself to use the restroom in the woods, Gabby surprises him and gives him a hand job. For the rest of the day, James struggles with his feelings over the experience. James offers to drive that night when the two couples are ready to depart the beach because everyone else is groggy and inebriated. The car's headlights start to malfunction while James is traveling through the countryside, which leads to a collision that quickly kills the local guy. James and M, who were both shocked by the incident, both recommend calling the police. Nevertheless, when Gabby and Albin warn them about the Litalkan government's draconian laws, they persuade them to leave the area and head back to the hotel, where James throws up from fright. The next morning, James is greeted by the Litalkan police at his suite, who arrest him for causing the previous night's events. At the local jail, he meets Detective Thresh, Thomas Kretschmann, the resort guard's brother. The detective informs James that the policy of the Litalkan government is that James can either be executed for his crime by the youngest son of the man he killed or, if he can afford it, the government will create a genetically identical double of James to be executed in his place. Due to their good financial standing, M agrees to pay the fee for James' double. The only drawback to purchasing the double is that James and M will both have to attend the execution. They are ushered into a small, dark room and seated next to the victim's family. In the middle of the room, James' duplicate, who shares all of James' memories with him, is chained to a post. A security leads the young guy of the deceased into the room and hands him a big knife. The youngster repeatedly stabs the doppelganger in defiance of his protests and cries for assistance. James is curiously enthralled and never takes his eyes off the situation, while M is plainly disturbed and covers her eyes. James and M are brought back to the resort after receiving the double's ashes, and a horrified M decides right wants to leave Litalka. James imitates them but gives up after realizing he can't find his passport. Then, after encouraging her to depart without him, he decides to stay an extra week so he may obtain a new passport. James runs into Gabby and Albin again while making the preparations with the hotel employees, and they extend an invitation to him to join them and their wealthy friends for a small celebration. The Bauers inform James that his holiday group has repeatedly gone through the identical doubling process. Once a year, they travel back to Litalka to commit terrible crimes while getting away with it thanks to their money, which enables them to have themselves doubled. The Bauers gang is referred to as zombies by one of their acquaintances. Knowing full well that they will never be held accountable for their acts, they torment the resort with their hedonistic and philandering behavior with the time they have left. They indoctrinate James into their group over the course of many days and encourage him to behave dangerously, which includes insulting the resort workers, having sex with the group, and arranging a home invasion involving a local politician. They are all once more taken into custody as they amusingly watch their doubles perish. James falls more and more in love with this new way of life, and his devotion only grows after M formally departs the nation to go back to America. The Bauers have a nightly plan to kidnap Detective Thresh from the jail and brutally beat him. Thresh is brought back to the Bauers' suite after their scheme is successful, tied up and wearing a bag over his head. James is happy to follow their instructions to beat even if he is shocked to learn that the man is not Thresh as he had been led to believe. Yet in reality, he is a duplicate of himself. James departs the room in a panic and goes back to his own suite because he is frustrated by the situation and does not want to murder the duplicate as the others want. He reveals that he stashed his passport there in order to have a justification for staying longer as he pulls it out from under his bathroom sink. James doesn't answer the door when Gabby knocks and tries to reason with him before luring him with sex. James takes a shuttle the following morning and is driven to the airport. The Bowers and the zombies, who are holding the bus at gunpoint and threatening to kill everyone on board unless James gets off, flag down the bus instead, and James grudgingly agrees to leave. Gabby falls on the windshield of Albin's car and scolds James, calling him a lousy man and a poor writer before admitting that neither she nor Albin had ever read his book. James is forced to return to the resort on foot while the group's automobiles follow him. James tries to approach Gabby out of frustration with their lifestyle, but is shot in the leg during the ensuing struggle. James is found unconscious next to a farm after spending several hours traveling through the woods with his gunshot wound. The family of the guy he killed comes to his aid. He has a hallucination that the man's youngest son is going to kill him again because of his wounds. He leaves the family's home after emerging from the dream in improved physical condition to find the Bowers and their group waiting for him. To finalize his entry into their group there, the group makes him fight a wild double of himself until one of them dies. James must beat the double to death in order to survive, so he caves his head in. A short while later, as the resort prepares to close for the monsoon season, James, the Bowers, and their friends are getting ready to leave Leetalka. James is horrified by what he did, while the others act coolly and collectedly as if the events of the previous week never happened. James waits at the airport before returning to the resort since he is unable to leave as the approaching monsoon approaches while the Bowers and several other vacationers board their planes. It is up to us to deduce that James believes his unexplained actions to be irrevocable and is unable to handle the sorrow of living a regular life after discovering what he has done. But, it is more difficult to deduce what prompted him to think of going back into society in the first place. It's easy to argue that his reluctance to kill his doppelganger wasn't caused by a resurgence of his moral conscience, but rather by the complete absence of it caused by his increased vanity and power. He seems to relish the sense of invincibility that comes with being able to outspend death, as seen on TV. Killing his duplicate was only the icing on the cake in terms of demonstrating his inferiority to the Bowers and their pals. James experienced a serious plunge into lunacy while what for the others was only a prolonged act of letting vices run wild. This is not to imply that the Bowers are superior to James because of their self-awareness, but rather that anyone willing to let money and power go to their head would be corrupted, which is a doubly repugnant idea given that James did not come from wealth. However, if one views the idea of James sitting in the pouring rain by the movie's final scene as an act of becoming clean, one could say that James has some level of self-awareness. But the idea of him trying to undo what he's done is only made more difficult by his choice to go back to the location where he originally lost a part of himself rather than returning home. Do you enjoy this? Like, share and subscribe for more videos.